So let us write the theorem again. So suppose we have a finite semigroup, right? X dot having both the satisfied both cancellation laws. Okay, then we may conclude that X dot forms a group. Okay, so what was our trick? Okay, so how one does prove this theorem? And the key point of this statement is the finiteness of the set. So that means you need to consider a finite set X. That means you can impose a numbering on the elements of the set, and that process of numbering will terminate after some step. Suppose after numbering you are saying that the elements of X are x1, x2, xn. Okay, and we have already proved in the last lecture, the theorem was that if you have a semigroup, satisfying that for any AB belongs to X, the equations A dot X equal to B and X dot A equal to B have solutions in X, then you have proved that X forms a group, right? So we are using this theorem to get this result. Okay, so we are to consider these equations, and our goal is to find out solutions of these equations. And to find out the solutions of this equation, you need to use the finiteness of this set and associativity. Okay, so let us suppose that A be any element of X, that is one of x1, x2, xn. Okay, so arbitrarily speaking, let it be small a. Okay, now we consider the set of elements, this one, which comprises of the elements of X composed with this A, this one. That means A dot x1, A dot x2, A dot xn. So firstly, we consider the left side composition, that is we compose A from left, and then we consider compose the elements of X with A from right. Okay, now Okay. Yeah. I don't know what happens. Yeah. Okay. So now we are asking to check that these elements a dot x1, a dot x2, and a dot xn, are these elements distinct or not? Because we see that here also it seems to have n many elements, but after after you check that these elements are distinct, then you can say that yes, this is again a set consisting of n many elements, and not only that, these elements are actually elements of this x. Okay. So in a way, this says that this set is actually equals to x. Okay. There is some network problem actually. I don't know. Okay. So we need to check that these elements are distinct. Okay. And for this, let a dot xk equal to a dot xj. Okay. A dot xk equal to a dot xj. Okay. So then you have assumed that this semi group satisfies cancellation laws, right? So here we see that this equation will imply that you can cancel out this a from both sides just using left cancellation law, and so this implies xk equal to xj. So if you consider two distinct elements from x, then you will get two distinct elements of this set. That means this shows that this set has exactly n elements, has exactly n many elements, of x, but x itself has n elements, right? These elements are actually from x also, because x is a semi group. So with respect to dot, it satisfies closure property. So therefore these elements are actually from x, and this they are comprising of n many elements, right? But X itself has n many elements. So what it says? So X is actually coincides with this set A dot Xn. Okay, and this proves that. So this proves that if you let any B belongs to X, then A dot X equal to B has a solution, some X L belongs to X, as X is this, right? This one. And since B is in X, so B must be one of A dot X1, A dot X2 or A dot Xn. So suppose B is A dot XL. So therefore this equation has a solution. And in a similar fashion, in a similar way, if you consider composition of A from right, then we can prove that for any A comma B belongs to X, X dot A equals to B as a solution in X. Okay. So this means that since X being a semi-group, having satisfied the property that these two equations have solutions in X, so keeping in mind this theorem, you can prove that you have proved that this theorem. So keeping in mind this theorem, you have actually deduced the result that we have stated. So this proves that X dot forms a group. Okay. So in a finite set, in a finite semi-group, if it satisfies cancellation laws, both the cancellation laws, then you are actually dealing with a group. Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay. So yeah. Okay. Now we are interested to have a look on commutative systems that I have already defined. Or we can, let me recall that an algebraic system, X dot is said to satisfy is said to satisfy commutativity. Okay. Or yeah, if for all A comma B belongs to X, A dot B equals to B dot A. Okay. So if you make a flip, then it will not change. Okay. Okay. So in addition to this, if it happens in a group, then we say that we say these groups as abelian groups. So it has some special name. So a group with commutative binary operation is said to be an abelian group. Okay. And for example, if you look at the examples, you will see that there are many abelian groups, and I have already discussed about some examples where you can find some abelian groups, such as, for example, Z plus, Q plus, R plus, C plus, right? There are many. If you consider, yeah, minus 0 dot Q minus 0 dot, sorry, sorry, this forms a semi, sorry, yeah, Q minus 0 dot R minus 0 dot C minus 0 dot, yeah. So these are all abelian groups. So there are many abelian groups. Since addition is commutative and multiplication is commutative here, right? Also, if X be a non-empty set, then power set of X with respect to symmetric difference, right? We have already proved that this forms a group, but this is actually an abelian group, is an abelian group, right? As for any two sets, a triangle B equals to B triangle A. That is why it is called symmetric difference, right? So this difference is satisfying symmetry. Okay, fine. Okay. And any other guess of abelian groups? Make some guess on that. We have already uh, so it is known to you that there are many groups we have already come across, right? What about Zn plus? Is it a commutative group? Note that Zn plus is a commutative group. That is, sorry, okay, an abelian group. Okay, right? And what about the group of units, that is UN, that I have defined already? That set of all those A classes which satisfies this property. The group of units of Zn plus Zn dot, yes, yeah. What about this? We see that un dot forms an abelian group. Okay, un dot forms an abelian group, right? Okay, now can you give an example of a non-abelian group? So it is so this question naturally arises that can you give an example of a non-abelian group? Can you make a guess?
The matrix.
Yeah, but okay, but I didn't discuss about matrix groups, right? Any other amongst the examples that we have discussed? There is one more important example, the symmetric group, right? The symmetric group of order 3 or more. Okay, okay, so that is our, okay, so we can prove that suppose X be a non-empty set, okay, and X uh, yeah, and X be the permutation group, right? Permutation group of X. Then what we can state? We can prove that this permutation group is an abelian group if and only if we have already seen the definition of cardinality of a set, right? What does it mean by cardinality of a set? Can you say? Can one give the definition of cardinality of a set? Hello. What does it mean by cardinality of a set? So if we consider the collection of sets and define a relation on X on the collection of sets, that if we consider two sets X and Y, they are equipotent if and only if there exists a bijection from X onto Y. So two sets, this was the relation, that is X is equipotent with equipotent, right? X is equipotent with Y if there exists a bijection F from X onto Y, right? And this relation defines an equivalence relation. So this equivalence relation will produce distinct equivalence classes. So, right? So for each equivalence class, that is, suppose you have X, so the equivalence class of X, so it will associate, suppose equivalence class is this, then it will associate one object, so that is called the cardinal number. Okay, so for each distinct equivalence class we associate one object, that is called the cardinal number of X, right? So that means, suppose you have two sets X and Y, the cardinality of X is equal to cardinality of Y if and only if they belong to the same equivalence class. Or you can say that there exists a bijection from X onto Y. Okay, and primarily it is known to us that cardinality means number of elements staying in the set. Okay, but that could be seen in finite sets, that yes, suppose you have a set of 10 elements, then you can say that the cardinal number is, you can denote the cardinal number by the object 10. So that is why we call 10 as the cardinality of the set having 10 many elements, right? Okay, so our result is that this permutation group will form an abelian group if and only if the cardinality of X is less than 3. Okay, so if X is a singleton set, or if X has two elements, exactly two elements, then you will find that the permutation group of these sets will form an abelian group. But if you consider a set of 3 elements, then the permutation group will never be an abelian group.
Hello.
So note that we have already seen that S3 is non-abelian, because if you look at the elements of S3 that I have written as, because phi psi is not equal to psi phi, right, where S3 has been defined like this, that is, it contains identity permutation. Phi was the cycle 1 2, psi was the cycle 1 2 3, and we have psi square, and then we have phi psi and psi phi, where these two elements are not same, right? Psi phi, pi square is identity, psi cube is identity. Okay, so we have already seen that if the cardinality of the set is 3, then the symmetric group is non-abelian, right? Okay, so suppose, okay, suppose that the cardinality of x is less than 3. That means either cardinality of x is 1 or it is 2. If cardinality of x is 1, then how many elements the permutation group does have? The permutation group consists of a single element, right, which is the identity. The identity. Only the singleton element, because you have only x has only one element, right? So therefore, the number of permutations will be 1 factorial. So that means it contains one element. So Ax is a set of one elements. So therefore, it is abelian, right? Because it contains the, because it consists of only the identity element. So it is a trivial group. Okay, so it is abelian. Now let us suppose that. Now let us suppose that the cardinality of x is 2. Okay, say in particular we can take any set of two elements, because each of them have same cardinality. So they are sitting in the same equivalence class. So you can consider any set containing two elements. Suppose you consider suppose A1, A2. Okay. Then how many bijections can you define? Only 2 factorial many bijections. That means 2, right? So then the permutation group of this consists of 2 elements. One is the identity, and the other one, and the other is the cycle A1, A2. That is A1 goes to A2 and A2 goes to A1. So therefore, which proves that the permutation group consists of E and this cycle must be an abelian group, right? Must be an abelian group. Okay. Okay. So, in view of this conversation, what we have proved that firstly, we have an example where you can set up a non-abelian group which is a symmetric group of order 3, and using this group you can actually say that this phi psi would be any would be a member of any symmetric group of order n by choosing the values of the permutations on other objects. Suppose you are considering suppose we consider x equal to 1 to 3, and then S3 would be the set of all these elements phi, psi, psi square, phi into psi and psi into phi, where phi is 1 2 cycle, psi is 1 2 3 cycle, right? Now, if and phi psi not equal to psi phi, right? Okay. Now, if you consider just add one member to x, just if you consider x equal to 1 2 3 4, then this phi and psi can be extended to a permutation in S4 by choosing the value of the permutation at 4 be fixed, that is 4 goes to 4, that is then we can extend, we can then phi will be a cycle, psi will be a cycle, sorry this is 1 2 sorry, and psi in S4, that is by choosing the value of these permutations at 4 will be fixed, that is 4 goes to 4. Okay, and then you can extend this one to S5, to S6, to S7 and to any n, any Sn. Okay, so in any Sn, phi psi not equal to psi phi, and hence so actually so using this one, this observation, you can prove that this is non-abelian if and only if cardinality of x is actually greater or equal to 3. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Great. Let us have a look. Okay, Fine. So there is another one example of non-abelian group, another important example, that is one of you have already specified that uh, suppose you consider another example of non-abelian groups, that is, suppose you consider this set, that is the set of all n cross n matrices over the real numbers R. Okay. Then you can define actually two operations. One is addition and another one is multiplication. Now, with respect to addition, you can easily check that uh, addition will be a commutative operation on m n cross n R. Not only that, it will be a commutative operation on any set of all matrices of order m cross n over the real numbers. But now if we move to the operation multiplication, then we can find out two matrices which do not satisfy the commutative property. So that means, okay, so this okay, so out of this set, so this forms an algebraic system. Not only that, it forms a semi group. Not only that, it forms a monoid, right? That is, has as I n cross n, that is the identity matrix having entries 1 1 1 in the diagonals and other entries are 0. So I n cross n being the identity. So it is actually a monoid. Now if you want to have a group out of this monoid, then you need to consider one function that is called determinant. And with respect to this determinant, you can set up another uh, group which is called GLNR, that is the set of all non-singular n cross n matrices, right, over the reals. And what does it mean by non-singular matrices? A matrix is said to be a square matrix of order n cross n is said to be non-singular if its determinant is non-zero. That means it consists of those matrices whose determinant is not equal to 0. And we can easily check that this forms a group, right, with respect to multiplication. Since any non-singular matrix is invertible, so we can have for any matrix having determinant non-zero, we must have an inverse matrix, right? So that is why GLNR forms a group with respect to multiplication, but it doesn't satisfy commutativity. Why? Commutative property. So I would like to leave this as an exercise to you to check the commutativity. That is, you need to find. So that is your exercise. Find two matrix, two matrices in, suppose if we consider GL3R, which do not satisfy commutativity. So that is left to you. Okay, and therefore our conclusion is that GLNR is non-abelian. Okay, for all n. Greater equal to 2. Okay, fine. Okay, now let us have a look on some equivalent characteristics of abelian groups. Okay, so let us have a look. Suppose I would like to state this as a theorem. The following are equivalent. The following are equivalent. Okay, for a group, for any group G dot. The first statement is G dot forms an abelian group. Okay. The second statement is for all a comma b belongs to G, A B inverse is going to be A inverse B inverse. And the third statement is going to be for all a comma b belongs to G, AB square is equal to A square B square. Okay. 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 Fine. So these are the statements. Afterward, we will see that actually, suppose you have an abelian group, then it will satisfy that an abelian group can be got back to by the property that for any three consecutive integers, for any three consecutive integers a, b, n, integers n, a, b, n equals to a, n, b, n. Okay, for any three consecutive integers, suppose n minus 1, n and n plus 1. That is 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7. These are called consecutive three integers. So n minus 1, n, n plus 1. Okay. So if you can check that for any three consecutive integers, this property holds, then you can actually have an abelian group. Okay. So not only it is true for these things, 2 and 3, we will get more general version. Okay. So let us have a look at the proof. Just now, suppose 1 holds, you need to prove 2. That is this. So 1 implies 2. So suppose 1 holds, right? That is, the group is abelian. Then for any A B belongs to Z, so what is your AB inverse that you have proved? It is B inverse A inverse. But since the group is abelian, so it must be A inverse B inverse. So it is very obvious. Okay. So if 1 holds, then 2 is implied by 1. Okay. Now let us look at this one. 2 implies 3. Okay. 2 implies 3. That is, AB inverse is A inverse B inverse for all A comma B belongs to G. So for AB belongs to G, suppose you consider AB. Now what is AB square? This is AB AB, right? Right? That means it is A B A B. That means you can write this as A inverse. Okay, fine. A, this is BA, so it is okay. Okay, so it is AB inverse of inverse into B. Just look at this inverse thing, that is AB inverse is B inverse A inverse, and then its inverse is A inverse, right? AB inverse is actually B inverse A inverse. Okay. No, as we, yes, as since 2 holds, so it is A inverse B inverse, right? AB inverse is A inverse B inverse. Okay, fine. A inverse B inverse. Now if you take another inverse, this one, it will be A inverse B inverse inverse. So that means it is inverse of B inverse and inverse of A inverse. We just consider this case, the definition. Okay. So this is B, this is A. So inverse of AB inverse is BA. So that is why we have written down here this. So this implies, so from this you will have, so A, AB, B, because inverse of, as we have seen another result, that is inverse of A inverse is A, right? So using this one you can say that inverse of AB inverse is AB. Okay, so that means it is A B B. So you can write it as A square B square. Okay, so thus we have proved that AB square is A square B square if 2 holds. Now 3 implies 1. What is this? So again, so A, so 3 implies 1, yes. So since 3 holds, so for all A comma B belongs to G, AB square must be A square B square, right? Now from this equation we actually have, so it is AB AB and it is A BB, right? So then this implies that A BA B A AB B, just using associativity. Now you see that Since it is a group, it satisfies cancellation laws. So first applying left cancellation and then apply right cancellation. So you will have BA equal to AB by left cancellation law LCL and right cancellation law RCL. And this proves that G is abelian. Okay, fine. Okay. So with the help of this theorem, you can set up another a necessary and sufficient condition for a group G to be an abelian. So G is abelian if and only for all AB belongs to G, AB square equal to A square B square. Okay, or for all AB belongs to G, AB inverse is A inverse B inverse. Okay, so I would like to give an exercise here, that is G dot forms an abelian group if and only if there exist three consecutive integers k such that A dot B k is A to the power k, B to the power k, for all AB belongs to G, right? So if you can find out three consecutive integers k, for which that means AB to the power k minus 1 is A to the power k minus 1, B to the power k minus 1, that is if there exists an integer k greater equal to 2 such that A to the power k minus AB to the power k minus 1 is A to the power k minus 1, B to the power k minus 1, AB to the power k equals to A to the power k, B to the power k, AB to the power k plus 1 equals to A to the power k plus 1, B to the power k plus 1. Okay. So if these three conditions be satisfied by this group, then this group will form an abelian group. Okay. So I would like to leave this as an exercise. Okay. Fine. Okay. Yeah. Now, yeah. So I would like to introduce the group that we need to discuss. Yeah. So that is external direct product of groups. Product of groups. That means suppose you have three groups. Suppose you have two groups G and G star. You have two groups and this G has some binary operation dot and G star has binary operation star. Okay, so you have two groups, G dot and G star star. Then out of these two groups you can construct, then we can construct the Cartesian product. The Cartesian product, suppose it is G sharp, that is G cross G star. Okay, to construct the Cartesian product G sharp equal to G cross G star. What does it mean by Cartesian product? That means it has elements like this, right? Yeah, the first place will have elements from G, and for the second place it will have the elements from G star, and these are ordered pairs, and that is why it is called first coordinate and it is called second coordinate, and these are ordered pairs, right? That means if you have two objects in G cross G star, that means G G star, and another one, suppose G1 G1 star, if they represents same objects, then this will be true if and only if the first place coordinates are equal, the second place coordinates are equal. Sorry, yeah, right. Okay, so these are ordered pairs. Now on this set G sharp, you can define a binary operation by using the binary operation of G and the binary operation of G star. So we define the binary operation compose on G sharp phi. So whenever you need to define a binary operation, an operation, then you need to consider two elements, right? So whenever you are to define a binary operation, then you need to consider two elements. Suppose one is G G star, compose G1 G1 star. Then what would be the definition of this? Where does it go? So this will go to G dot G1 for the first coordinate, and for the second one it will go to G star star G1 star, right? Fine. So you can check that okay. So you can check that. So this is again an element of G sharp, right? Because G dot G1 is an element of G, G star star G1 star is an element of G star. So that is why this is a binary operation. And since G and G star forms a group, so it satisfies associativity. And using their associativity, it will inherit the G sharp will inherit this associativity from G and G star. That means since G and G star satisfies associativity with respect to their respective operations, so is the set G sharp with respect to this circle. Now note that, so G sharp circle is associative. Okay. Now, what would be the identity, if any? Now, you observe that G has an identity. Suppose it is EG. EG, the identity of G, and EG star, the identity of G star, right? And using this identity, you can set up one element EG sharp, which is the first position will be EG, and for the second one it is EG star. So you need to check that this EG sharp will satisfy the property of being an identity. That is, so for any G star belongs to G sharp, we have, so E G sharp compose G star. What is that? It is EG star compose G star. That is EG dot G, and it is EG star star G star. So that means this one is G and this one is G star. And in a similar way, you can actually show that G star circle EG star. That means GG circle GG star circle EG sharp. Okay. So hence this EG, so this proves that this EG sharp is the identity in G sharp. Okay. And what are their inverse? Let G star belongs to G sharp. Now since this G, so G belongs to capital G and G star belongs to capital G star, and therefore in the respective groups they have inverses, right? So G has an inverse, therefore G inverse belongs to G and G star inverse belongs to G star. Okay. And then for G star we have G star compose G inverse G star inverse. It is G inverse and it is G star inverse. So the first one is EG and second one is EG star. So that is EG sharp. Similarly, it can be proved for other sides also. G inverse G, G star inverse G star. So it is, yeah, so it is G inverse G star inverse circle G star. Okay. So this proves that every element of G sharp, so every element of G sharp has an inverse. So hence G sharp forms a group with respect to circle, which is defined to be the direct product of G and G star. Okay. Okay, okay. So I would like to finish up today's lecture by just introducing the another group which is of great importance in group theory, and not only that, these groups are actually the basic foundational examples of groups, and these examples actually give you the sense of what a group is, right? These are natural kind of examples one can have in group theory. Okay, so these are called group of symmetries. So how one does prove this one? So okay, so group of symmetries, right? Okay, so suppose we consider 2 points in R2 in a plane. Consider 2 points. Suppose one is x, which is uh, x1, x2, and another one is y, that is y1, y2 in the plane R2, right? Then you can define a distance between these 2 points that we so yeah. So then you can define the natural distance in between. That is, if you have x and y, then the distance in between x and y is the length of the line segment joining x and y, right? So the length of x and y is actually root over of x1 minus y1 square x2 minus y2 square, and this will be denoted by d of xy. Okay, so we like to denote this distance from x and x to y as like dxy. Okay, now you consider, now let x be the set of all points on a given geometrical figure. Let x be the set of all points on a given geometrical figure. That means x be a non-empty subset of that is x be a non-empty subset of, yes, of the plane R2. Okay. Now what does it mean by a symmetry? A symmetry of x, the definition, a symmetry of a geometrical figure x geometrical figure x is nothing but a bijection. A bijection phi from X onto itself, satisfying that. So the distance between, so if you have, this is your X and this is your X, okay, you have this phi. So what you define symmetry. So suppose it for any two elements, for any 2 points in X and Y, okay, then their distance is d AB. So this is your dxy, this is x, this is y. So this is your dxy. Now since this phi maps x onto x, okay, and phi is 1 1, so that is why this x will go to some, this is your phi x and this is your phi y. Now if this phi is said to satisfy the property of symmetry if the distance between x and y will be equal to the distance between these. So satisfying that, distance between phi x, phi y, distance between these 2 points is actually the distance between these 2 points. So if it does, then you can define phi from x onto x to be a symmetry of the geometrical figure this. Okay. So in this way you can give a definition of a symmetry. And now you consider for this geometrical figure X the set of all. So let sim X denotes the set of all symmetries of the figure X. Okay. So since a symmetry, in particular a permutation, right? Since it is a bijection from X onto itself, so in particular it is a permutation. So sim X is actually a subset of the permutation group of X. Okay. And note that one may ask a question that, so one may ask a question that how do you guarantee one symmetry of a geometrical figure? Yes, it does have one symmetry. What is that? This is the identity map from X onto X. So this map will definitely be a symmetry. So note that identity on X, the identity map on X belongs to sim X. Symmetry, right? So that is why this set is non-empty set. Set of all symmetries of a geometrical figure X must be a non-empty set. And since it is non-empty, so we are tempted to show that this will form a group or not. Okay. With respect to the operation, what is the operation? Now since this is a subset of this permutation group and this group has the operation of composition of mappings. So it is our first choice to check this set, will it form a group with respect to that composition of map defined on the permutation group. Okay. right? Now since it is a subset of Ax and Ax satisfies associativity, okay, so we do not bother about the associativity in this one. Rather, firstly we need to check that if you consider, if suppose phi and psi be two symmetries, then do they satisfy the closure one, closure property? That is, phi compose psi is again a symmetry of X. So if phi and psi belongs to sim X, then what do you have? That is d of phi x phi y equals to dxy equals to d of psi x psi y for all x comma y belongs to X, right? So then d of phi psi of X phi psi of y, then d of phi of psi x phi of psi y. Now since phi is a symmetry, so it must be d of psi x psi y, and again since psi is a symmetry, so it must be dxy. So yes, it proves that phi psi is a symmetry of the geometrical figure. Phi psi belongs to sim X. So thus, with respect to composition of map, this is closed under the composition of mapping. And for this, you can at once say that this is associative also. The composition defined on symmetries of X is associative, right? So hence, sim X is a semigroup with respect to composition of map. Not only that, we have already seen one particular element, one important guy, that is the identity map on X. And this has the property that for any function, for any function f, for any bijective map f from X onto X, identity map will commute this map, and not only that, it will result the map itself. That is, identity on X compose f equal to f compose identity X, this one. Identity X compose f equal to f compose identity X, and it is f. So this property tells you that, so it is easy to check that identity X is the identity in sim X, right? So it is a monoid. So it is a monoid. Now it remains to check the existence of inverse, right? So now for any phi belongs to sim X, then for all xy belongs to X, distance between phi x and phi y is t of xy, right? Right? Now, since phi is a symmetry, so it must be bijective, and since it is bijective, so it must have inverse, right? Functional inverse. So d of xy, so yes, sorry, 1 minute. So d of phi inverse x phi inverse y, what you can do, since phi inverse is a map from X to X and it is 1 1 on 2, so these are actually elements in X of the geometrical figure X. So you can impose phi on this phi inverse X and phi inverse Y, that is d of phi phi inverse x, phi inverse y, right? Yes. Now since phi is a symmetry, so yes. So okay. So now since phi compose phi inverse is identity, so it is phi inverse x, phi inverse y. So that means d of identity x of x and identity x of y. So that means it is d of xy. So thus we have seen that for any two x and y belongs to capital X, phi inverse is also a symmetry of the geometrical figure. So that means phi inverse belongs to sim x and phi inverse is phi inverse phi equal to identity now, right? Right. So hence, so this proves that sim x forms a group which is called group of symmetries of x. Okay. Okay. So with this one, I would like to end here.